Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, Zhang Youxia, and member of the Central Military Commission, Chief of the Joint Staff Department of the Central Military, Zhenli, are suspected of serious violations of discipline and law. After research and decision by the Party Central Committee, an investigation has been launched into Zhang Youxia and Zhenli.
This is a major breaking development out of Beijing. I've prepared the most detailed strategic intelligence and analysis for you. Please stay with me. China's Ministry of Defense has announced that General Zhang Youxia, a Politburo member and Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, and General Zhenli, a Central Military Commission member and Chief of the Joint Staff Department, are now under investigation for what the ministry called serious violations of discipline and law. That phrase is familiar in China's system. It's often the public label attached to cases involving corruption, political discipline issues, or both. But here's the puzzle. Because this isn't just another official. These are two of the most senior uniformed figures in China's command structure, and their sudden removal from the public stage, followed by an official investigation, creates a question that matters far beyond Beijing. Is this primarily an anti-corruption case, or is it a sign that China's top-level military command is under a level of internal stress the outside world rarely gets to see? Interestingly, after publishing the announcement that the two officials were under investigation, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection's official website subsequently removed the notice. This unexpected move immediately drew widespread attention. Some analysts believe this may indicate an intense power struggle between two factions within Zhongnanhai. How this confrontation will ultimately unfold remains uncertain. For now, we will base our discussion and analysis strictly on the official information that is currently available. Let's treat this like a case file. Here's how we're going to break it down. The official story, what Beijing actually said, and what it carefully did not say. Why these two names matter their roles, and why the timing is so consequential. The chain of evidence, the purge pattern, the missing appearances, and what this suggests about the command system. The competing theories corruption, loyalty enforcement, and the more explosive claims circulating online. The strategic implications, Taiwan planning, crisis stability, and what outsiders should watch next. Let's start with the only part we can treat as confirmed. China's defense authorities say Zhang Youxia and Zhenli are under investigation for serious violations of discipline and law. That language appeared across official and state-linked reporting. What we do not have, at least publicly, is a detailed charge sheet, a timeline, or a description of alleged wrongdoing. And that omission matters. Because in China's political system, the lack of detail is often the point. The announcement is designed to establish a fact. They are being investigated, while leaving maximum flexibility about why. Now let's connect this to structure. One of the most striking analyses in reputable international coverage is that this move effectively shrinks the Central Military Commission's functional leadership to an exceptionally small core, concentrating operational control even further at the top. That takes us to the next part of the case. Zhang Youxia, CMC number 2, in practical terms, Zhang is not just any general. He is the position one of the two vice chairmen of the Central Military Commission, China's top military authority. In practice, that makes him one of the highest-ranking uniformed figures in the entire system. He's also widely described in major reporting as a long-standing, high-trust military figure in the current leadership era meaning. If a person at that level becomes vulnerable, it signals something structural. Zhenli, the Joint Staff Node Liu, meanwhile, sits on the CMC and runs the Joint Staff Department. Think of it as the PLA's Central Operational Planning and Command Coordination Hub. If you care about readiness, command and control, and contingency planning, this is a critical node. So when both figures are placed under investigation together, you're not looking at a normal cadre of change. You're looking at a disruption that touches both strategic authority and operational planning. Now, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why would a system do this to itself at this level unless it believed the risks of not doing it were even bigger? Let's connect a few verifiable dots. Fact 1. This fits a broader accelerating PLA leadership purge. Multiple reputable outlets framed today's announcement as part of a longer campaign targeting senior military leadership. Reuters notes previous high-profile cases and the impact such purges have had, including disruption to procurement and modernization processes. AP similarly places this inside a long-running purge pattern tied to discipline enforcement and political control mechanisms. Fact 2. Analysts are openly discussing concentration of operational control. The Financial Times specifically highlights the implication. Operational control becomes even more centralized when top commanders are removed. Now, centralization can look like efficiency on paper. But in military organizations, there's a trade-off. The more you narrow the decision circle, the more you risk bottlenecks, fear-driven decision-making, and slower adaptation under crisis pressure. And that leads to fact 3. The PLA's highest levels are now exposed to a continuity of command problem.
When investigations take down multiple senior figures across a short period, you don't just lose people, you lose working relationships, institutional memory, and trusted coordination habits. In a system that already struggles with transparency, the outside world can't see how smoothly replacements are being made, or whether internal trust is eroding. So the real-world stake isn't an abstract political drama, it's this. How reliably can the PLA execute complex joint operations if senior command nodes keep turning over under investigation pressure? That's a readiness question, not a gossip question. Now we enter the zone where we need to be careful. What's confirmed, what's plausible, and what's unverified. Theory A. This is primarily anti-corruption. This is the simplest explanation and the one most consistent with official phrasing. A number of outlets explicitly describe serious violations of discipline as language commonly associated with corruption cases.
If this is the core driver, the implication is still serious. It suggests corruption risks exist even at the very top. And it suggests the enforcement campaign has reached a stage where even the most senior figures are not insulated. Theory B. This is primarily loyalty and command discipline enforcement. This is where the analysis gets more strategic. Financial Times notes the broader context of readiness goals and political control in the armed forces, including how leadership may view command reliability as essential to contingency planning. In practical terms, if the leadership believes the military is not executing modernization, procurement, or readiness directives with sufficient speed or sufficient political alignment, then discipline enforcement becomes a tool to reassert control. Theory C. The coup attempt claims high risk, unverified, but influential.
Now, there are more explosive claims circulating, particularly in self-media and on social platforms, suggesting something like an internal power move was planned or attempted. Here's the responsible way to handle that. These claims are not confirmed by the official announcement. Some of the loudest versions come from commentators and individual accounts, not from verifiable primary documentation. Even pro-claim narratives acknowledge the reporting is fluid and hard to independently verify. So rather than repeating the most incendiary framing, let's focus on what matters analytically. The existence of these claims, spreading widely, is itself a signal of information turbulence and elite uncertainty, and it also tells you something about Beijing's vulnerability. When the system gives almost no details, it creates an information vacuum. In that vacuum, the market fills with speculation. So what should we watch for that would separate routine purge from acute internal crisis? If you want to think like an intelligence analyst, you watch for system indicators, not dramatic language. Here are the signals that would be meaningful over the next days and weeks. Replacement speed and profile. Do we see rapid appointments to stabilize the chain of command, or prolonged vacancies that suggest internal negotiation? Messaging intensity. Does state media treat this as a contained discipline case, or does it expand into a broader campaign narrative about rectification, and absolute loyalty, operational posture around Taiwan and the near seas, not because anyone wants crisis, but because military signaling is often used to project stability externally when internal systems are under stress. Procurement and modernization language. Reuters noted previous purges have slowed advanced weapons procurement. If the messaging suddenly emphasizes clean governance inside procurement channels again, that's a clue about what the leadership is prioritizing. Now let's talk about the question everyone will ask, whether they say it out loud or not. This is where simplistic takes fail. Many people hear purge and assume the military is weaker, so conflict risk drops. But the strategic reality can be more complicated. Here are the two competing effects. Effect 1. Capability friction increases. When senior command nodes are disrupted, complex joint operations become harder to plan and execute smoothly, especially if replacements are selected primarily for political reliability rather than operational competence. In that sense, disruption can reduce near-term execution confidence. Effect 2. Miscalculation risk can rise. But here's the other side. If decision-making becomes more centralized, more insulated, and more loyalty-filtered, you can get narrower feedback loops, fewer dissenting assessments, and greater temptation to use external posture to project strength. So the real question isn't, is the PLA weaker or stronger? It's this. Does this leadership environment produce more caution, or does it produce more incentive to prove control through risk-taking? Financial Times explicitly ties today's development to broader questions of control and readiness for contingencies, which is why outside observers will read this as more than an internal discipline story. Let's summarize the evidence chain. Beijing has officially confirmed investigations into two extremely senior PLA leaders. This sits within a broader purge pattern that credible outlets describe as reshaping the top of the military. Reputable analysis suggests the effect is greater concentration of operational control, which changes crisis dynamics and readiness behavior. So here's the lingering question, the one that should stay with you after this briefing. If the system is confident, stable, and unified, why does it keep needing to remove and investigate the very people responsible for ensuring military readiness at the highest level? Because in national security, repeated top-level disruption is never just internal housekeeping. It changes the outside world's risk calculations, whether Beijing intends it to or not. That's where we'll leave it for today. I'm Eric Chen. This has been your intelligence briefing. We'll continue tracking these signals, carefully and without noise. See you around.